that. All right. G'day guys, Tim here, the guy in the hat at our favourite location here for another fabulous podcast. We've had a couple of weeks off. I'm here, of course, with the samurai of silver himself. It's the Sammy from Liberty Bullion. How are you, Sammy?
Oh, fantastic as always, Timmy. What a time to be alive, some might say.
What a time to be alive. And of course, I've got the Baron of Bitcoin himself, Bishop from Stormrake. What he doesn't know about Bitcoin, you can write on the back of a postage stamp. What do you say to people, Bish?
I'm feeling great, feeling electric, and yeah, you're not bullish enough. Buy more, buy more, buy more.
Now, before we get started, we have to start with our little new little mantra. So who starts off here?
Absolutely. Crypto.
Research.
Bullion.
With our powers combined and the Fed.
And the Fed.
I've got to work on that.
Yeah, well, there's a bit of love to it.
All right. And it's funny, you know, like how we can take such a dystopian topic and turn it into a little bit of fun.
Yeah.
So, you know, while we're going to hell in a handbasket, we can actually have a bit of fun with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, you look at the topic of global monetary systems, central banks, money printing, inflation, cost of living prices, you know, the loss of freedoms across the world. It can get quite dark, but hey, we have good fun with it and we have a good time, which, I mean, combine that with the results that our clients are getting from sitting themselves in the right assets. What a time to be alive.
What a time to be alive. Let's start with that, Sammy, because the cost of living, I just read an article out on my channel last night, and apparently it's the worst it's been in a century.
Yeah.
Now, people in the sorts of assets we're talking about, how are they going to handle this next phase of, you know, this incredible cost of living crisis? How is it going to be for people in these kinds of assets?
Well, when you're sat in the best assets in the planet, inflation hedge assets during an inflationary crisis, you don't really feel the crisis part. At least that's how I'm feeling myself. With gold and silver prices up, you know, about 10% for the year already in a month and a half.
Yeah,
you know, even if the price of everything else is up 10%, I'm unaffected. Whereas the average Australian, they are seriously affected from said price increases. So yeah, you see yourself in the right assets, you do the right research, you take the right actions, you make good choices, and you reap the rewards from doing so.
Absolutely. What do you say about that?
Absolutely. I mean, it's so important to realize that currency debasement is an active decision made by global elites, the central banks around the world. They're actively debasing your currency every single day. So you have to take action, because inaction is simply not an option unless, you know, you wish for, you know, servitude and poverty, which is not something I want any one of our people, our BTR family, my family, your family to ever experience. So that's why we go hammer and tong in recommending Bitcoin, gold, and silver. So that way you don't have to be exposed to the machinations of the central bank and, you know, telling you, oh, it's all good. You know, we've got the gold underneath Fort Knox. It's all good, guys. It's all good. So yeah, you don't have to be exposed to the malarkey.
We'll talk about this Fort Knox thing. Now, Trump, of course, he's appointed a guy that hasn't got any birth certificate. He was born in South Africa. He looks to me like a cross between the robot out of Aliens and a cyborg. And he went from being an expert in nothing to flying cars into space and blowing them up to now being Department of Government Efficiency.
Yeah.
Now, what are these boys up to? They're going to audit something. What is going on?
Is that the same bloke that wants to put chips in my brain and connect them to the internet?
Yes.
Oh, that one. So
we're not talking Sandboy chips here, Sammy.
Nah. Obviously a great bloke. Obviously. Anyway. So yes. They are trying to audit the Fed, or at least that's what they're talking about doing.
And why would they want to do? Well, hang on, they're not auditing the Fed. They're auditing Fort Knox.
Sorry, audit the gold at Fort Knox, which is technically held by the Treasury, as you would know if you've been listening to this man in the hat talk for.
Well, Roosevelt took it off. Yeah, but he gave them a check for $11 billion. Don't you find it interesting? You're going to write a check for $11 billion in USD and give it to the Fed who print the USD. I find that fascinating.
It's a weird one.
A bit of a good trade though, because you get the gold and they get a promissory note for the base US dollars. So that's a pretty good trade.
But here's the funny part about this. Where did the Treasury get the 11 billion to pay the Fed in the first place?
They printed it.
Well, it's just so stupid. I mean, what do they do? Raise the Treasury, sell it to the
Federal Reserve,
and so they could write a check for 11 billion for the gold they took.
Just on that topic, would people ever talk to me about, oh, you know, I don't invest in Bitcoin because it's too complicated or I don't understand it? I'm like, hang on. The fiat system is far more complex than the simple code that Bitcoin is. And it's a simple monetary policy. 21 million Bitcoins will ever exist. Every 4 years, approximately, the supply or the emission of new Bitcoins halves. So it's a very simple thing to wrap your head around. But the actual creation of fiat currency in our system is the most convoluted, complex, and by design, system
But
that
is
they
it
have.
really that complex?
Well,
What is there about it that's
well,
complex?
it's not complex, but it's convoluted.
No,
because
but how simple is it in reality? I mean, if you had to explain currency printing to a group of 5-year-olds, how would you explain it?
But I mean, then you have to add in the fact that there's like all of these other ways that they print money through. For example, the Fed repo market, which is there's all, and that's getting currently drained. And when that, obviously, the liquidity on that comes back up, I'm expecting Bitcoin to rally. So it is convoluted. I wouldn't say it's complex, but it is convoluted.
I would say that they try and make it complex as they can, but when you truly distill it down to the very essence of it, it's quite simple. So, you can say that, well, look, there's this private bank that prints the world's reserve currency out of thin air and then lends it to us with interest. Very simple. Very simple. But then you start asking, well, what are the member banks of the Federal Reserve, and what are the 12 different district Federal Reserve banks, and and what's the DTCC, and the complexity grows from there.
Yep.
But on the surface of it, you keep it as simple as you can. There's a private bank that they call Federal, and they have the power to print the world's reserve currency out of thin air
With
and
no
lend it to us
reserves.
with
With no
interest,
Well,
with
hang
no
on, is it
reserves.
federal?
And they're not federal.
Right.
So if that makes sense, they're federal, but they're not federal. They're called the Federal Reserve, but they have no reserves. They print dollars out of thin air and lend it to us with interest. And if you do the same, it's called counterfeiting, but when they do it, it's called monetary policy. So when you put it like that, it's real simple, guys.
I love Sam.
But why?
But what's the goal?
But where's the goal?
Half of it's round 70.
Oh, sorry, boys, I've got it. I'll give it back later.
It's hidden in plain sight. So the question is, though, why is Trump saying he's going to audit Fort Knox? For what purpose are we going to do this? What are they really trying to tell people?
I see this as a larger game of, they see that the US dollar is on the way out as the world's reserve currency. They weaponized it back with the Russia thing. That's blown up in their faces. Inflation's getting worse and worse.
Yeah.
Now Trump's coming in talking about tariffs. That's going to mean further US dollar debasement. So what they've got to do is somehow make the world want to use the US dollar as the world's reserve currency again. So how would you do that?
Well, how do you do that?
How do you do that?
We're gonna get wealthy. We're gonna get wealthy.
We're
boys.
going to
I
need
can feel
some.
it.
We're going to need some lipstick. We're going to need some beautiful spray. How are you going to dress up the USC to make it look good?
So the simplest. This is why the whole conversation around a strategic Bitcoin reserve has been happening. Why they're talking about auditing the gold. The easiest way to put lipstick on a pig, which is what the US dollar is you got to strengthen the US Treasury's balance sheet, right?
Yeah.
They're in significant amounts of debt. So if you've got a ton of debt, but you've got a lot of assets, and the assets are appreciating against the debt, which is actively getting debased, you've got a chance of fighting it. Now, this is what, the Australian property market is all about. They get levered up to the hilt. They take on enormous amounts of debt. The construction industry is under enormous amounts of debt. Construction financing is huge. Private credit networks continue to expand. So the way they do it is that they take on massive amounts of debt in the hopes that they plow it into an asset that they can then appreciate over time, that they can then skim the margin off the top. So if the debt is, say, 6, 7, 8%, but the asset is appreciating at 12%, they've made a net gain of 4%, for example, right? That's just the basic nuts and bolts of it. That's the easiest way the US Treasury can strengthen their appeal of the US dollar, is they buy up a ton of Bitcoin. They make sure that the gold is there, and they'll realize that they're chronically short. So they're going to go out and buy metric tons of gold, which is going to make gold rocket through the roof. I would also like to say that silver has been, and this is something you should be talking about, not me, but has been massively demonetized. And if that actually ends up getting monetized again, silver will just rip up and melt faces like no tomorrow. More that from the samurai of silver.
Yes.
But Bitcoin, gold, and silver will go through this biblical repricing where gold can easily be worth $30 trillion. It's worth 20 trillion combined market cap. Bitcoin and silver is about 2 trillion. That can go to 20 trillion, a 10x return from here. So you can see $300 an ounce silver, and you can see $1 million per Bitcoin. And that's it. That's how you can fix it. I'm not saying fix it entirely, but you can give the US dollar some more longevity.
Sammy.
Yep, look, I couldn't help but agree there. I actually think you're a bit too kind there to the Federal Reserve, a bit too mean to pigs. But look, can't help but agree with everything Bish is saying there, is that if they build up the asset side of their books, you know, they get some Bitcoin on the books, they make sure the gold's really there, which it isn't. But hey, if they bring it across from London like they're trying to and make sure that it is actually there, that'll be great for them. Then those two assets can grow, and if they grow fast enough and, you know, it eventually nets out with a debt, then that's the plan, that's the idea. Do I think it's going to work out like that? I think it's going to be a bit messier and a bit bumpier than that in reality. But that's the idea. That's why they're doing what they're doing. So, I mean, what does this mean for us as investors? Well, we can read the writing on the wall. We see massive gold flows happening around the world. We see gold in the mainstream media retaking center stage of people's attention. We see gold prices ripping to the upside. Silver outperforming gold on a percentage basis over the last couple of weeks. So what does that tell you as an investor? Position yourself accordingly. Get in inflation hedge assets. Get in gold. Get in silver. Get in Bitcoin. Get in the right assets that are going to perform for you in a big way, so that you can benefit from what's happening around you. Instead of just sitting there and watching the news go by, make sure that this stuff benefits your back pocket.
I mean, Tim and Sam, I'd like you guys to talk about this. This was something from the Reserve Bank of Australia recently. I sent it to you guys, and it says the serial numbers of gold bars held at the Bank of England. The existence of fake gold bars has been detected in the past by presence of duplicate refiners' serial numbers. And this was actually published by the Australian federal government. And there's been fake gold bars detected. And this was actually raised by Senator Rennick.
Yep.
So, you know, we as a nation have exported all of our gold to the Bank of England.
Yep.
And there's been actual fake gold bars detected because of, I mean, I'd like you guys to, because I'm not that in tune with the bullion market.
Yes.
That's not my
So this is something that I've been looking at for years and years. The idea that we've got 80 or so tons of gold in Australia, that may sound like a lot, but there's 27 million of us. So it works out to about 3 grams of gold per person. I'm wearing over 100 grams of gold on me right now.
So you've got your allocation.
Yeah.
Well, actually closer to 200 grams, to be honest. So it's not much gold, guys, is
That's
what
just
I'm
the gold
saying
you
there.
can see that.
Yeah, that's it. That's just what I'm wearing, guys. But yeah, point being that it's not much. Anyway, moving on. So we've got these 80 tons stored at the Bank of England. Now, if we'd like to audit it, we've got to give them over a month's notice. That's enough time for them. And we've got to tell them which bar numbers we want to see. So does that make sense? Where we give them a month's notice, we tell them which bar numbers we want to see. They've got time to go to the refinery, produce those bar numbers and have them ready for us to have a look at. And then they still come and find fake gold. So does that instill confidence in you as an Australian, in your Australian dollar? Oh, it's backed by gold, mate. Is it? Is it really? Is it really there? Is it real gold? These are the questions that we should be asking. I have no idea why we store our gold at the Bank of England. Oh, they say, oh, well, London's the center of gold trading for the world. Therefore, it makes sense to keep it in London. Really? Are we going to sell it anytime soon? Are we going to move it? Are we going to sell it to somebody else? No, it's ours. It's going to continue being ours. So why do we hold it in the center of gold trading? Are we going to trade it? No, we're not. It's our monetary gold. Why don't we hold it in Australia? Yeah. All of these are great questions.
Ask Michelle Bullock.
Yeah, well, we'll ask Michelle. She's a great communicator, mate. So.
I mean, she's an expert on where the gold is. She's an expert on Bitcoin, apparently.
Oh, yeah.
Some of these other assets.
But this is
She
why
knows a lot about money.
This is why I actually get really bullish on the Bitcoin case. Is that if a nation was to hold Bitcoin reserves, there's no faking a Bitcoin audit because the Bitcoin network is constantly keeping things in check. So if they publicly release, as any public entity should, a public government or whatever, like we forget that the government is meant to serve us. We're not meant to serve the government. So a public.
Sorry, when did that start?
I mean, I'm an idealistic kind of individual. It's a shame. But what happens is that if a government was to be on a Bitcoin standard and was to publish their Bitcoin wallet address, they could never fake, rehypothecate, or fail an audit because it's ongoing every second of the day.
It's a fully accountable system.
Yes.
How many governments are going to go for the fully accountable system?
Look, this is the thing. When you realize how hooked the system is, they are going to do whatever it takes to shore up faith in the fiat system. They'll try to bring up some gold and silver and add it onto their balance sheet. They're going to try to show you the gold. Maybe Australia, grows a set of stones and tries to bring the gold back on shore. They're going to try to add Bitcoin to their balance sheet, show Bitcoin as part of their reserves. This is all to be able to provide just a drop of extra longevity to a failing fiat system. We are, and this is not something like we're talking about in some Melbourne cafe. You've got heaps of politicians across the globe, both US, Australian, even parts of the developing world, are talking about how there's a big bifurcation and a separation of world power, because it's almost always been America since the fall of since World War II.
Yeah.
Right, it's been America, America, America as the one world superpower. Now we're starting to see rising multiple superpowers across the world. China's rising, Russia's rising, America declining. So there's going to be these schisms occurring between the world, and we are holding the assets that all of these governments are going to want. So you're front running the government, you're front running the central banks, you're front running the investment houses, you're front running the commercial banks, and you just get wealthy from it, and you can just let them play their game because it's a big game and it's a big club and we're not in it.
Yep.
So just let them play their game and just appreciate and let the assets appreciate over time. That's it. Simple.
Yep. So, Sammy, all this talk about auditing and so on, is this, Vishu was hinting at gold moving in value.
Yeah.
And gold is what is it now? A $20 trillion, $17 to $20 trillion market
Call it
cap.
20. Yeah.
Is gold going to, we're moving to a new monetary system. That is almost undoubted. And we're going to see stable coin as the bridge across.
Yeah.
I think you're right on that.
Absolutely.
Where is gold sitting in this new world?
So-
and what sort of price point are we going to land at?
So when it comes to talking about, rebacking the US dollar with gold and using the US's gold reserves to give confidence to the US dollar again, all of that only works at a much, much higher gold price than it is today. I mean, I've seen a bunch of analysis on it. We're talking anywhere between 40,000 US dollars per ounce to 100,000 US dollars per ounce. Today, we're floating at 2,900. So, if we go to 40, that's over a 10x. That's what, a 13, 14x. And then if we go to 100K, well, that's over a 30x on gold. And silver, I expect to do a 3 or 4x compared to gold. So what's that? 15 times 3, 45x. 30x times 3 is a 90x. 90x on silver. So, these numbers seem
What
huge.
sort of time frame would you say? We're talking 10 years?
Well,
or we're talking, we don't know. Or...
This is the great question. I mean, is it an overnight revaluation, in which case it happens overnight? Or is this something where it's a slow march towards it and, we get there over the space of a few years, in which case the price gets there over the space of a few years? I'm leaning more towards an overnight revaluation.
Yeah, I am too.
I don't think that the market would act in an orderly manner if it knew that we're going to have a long-term revaluation. I think everyone just try and front run it, get in early and push the price up immediately. But that's just my 2 cents.
No, that's 6 cents because we've got 2 cents.
Oh, 2 cents each. There you go.
We've got a 5 each way.
Yeah,
I totally agree with what you just said. And I was reading this article yesterday on my channel about the fact that the Reserve Bank of Australia has just come out really and said that this year it's pretty much we're going to hit the wall here somewhere.
Yeah.
And I think we've been holding back the dam. And you're right. This is just going to be nothing, and then collapse, bang, an overnight reprice. What do you say?
Absolutely. What I was just showing you guys before was the US M2 money supply.
The M2.
So the M2 has just been absolutely parabolic. If you want to see a parabolic curve, and you really get excited about that kind of stuff, I know some of the traders do, look at the M2 money supply. It has gone absolutely parabolic, especially in the last 4 years, because you have to understand each time they go through a quantitative easing program, which is just a fancy way of saying money printing. It has to be bigger than the last one to have any material effect on, papering over the bank losses and bonds, papering over the issues that there's going on within their economy. And so what we're seeing right now is that gold, silver, and Bitcoin would have to become easily, particularly Bitcoin and silver, because they're $2 trillion compared to gold's 20 trillion, would need to rise to 20, 30 trillion plus just to be able to cover the M2 money supply. just to cover the money supply, right? So if you're talking about backing your currency with scarce assets, both physical and digital, you're going to need to buy a metric ton of them or massively revalue those assets to be able to cover it. Because let's say money supply is $30 trillion. It's probably a lot higher than that, but let's say it's 30 trillion. You would need to have Bitcoin and silver grow by a magnitude of 15x just to cover the money supply, right? That's insanity. That's insanity. You need to have gold go up 30% in just this year alone for it to just cover, not even just back, like as in provide a genuine backstop, but just to cover the money supply, let alone the other financial and debt instruments that are out there that represent cash equivalents, such as treasury instruments, which is a $400 trillion market, right? It's insanity. When you put these numbers into context and you talk about gold, silver, and Bitcoin being 20 trillion and 2 trillion respectively, insane. The repricing is going to be biblical.
Sammy, so all right, some predictions here. By the end of 25?
Yep.
I mean, the RBA is going to be dropping interest rates. It has to, because people can't do this anymore. I just put up an article saying 1.1 million Australians are under Victorians, actually not even Australian, Victorians under severe mortgage stress now.
That's 25%.
25%.
Yeah.
So a quarter of Victorians are just hooked on their mortgages. Now, I know that Australia is not a key driver of the precious metal space, but Australia, the Aussie dollar is going to, I feel the Aussie dollar, together with the tariffs that Trump's talking about, is going to suffer here.
Big time.
Actually, just a segue on that, the tariffs that Trump is talking about putting on Australian aluminium and steel is 25%.
Yep.
We supply 2% of the American market. I mean, is this going to have any impact on Australia?
Big time. So 2% of the American market, it's not going to hurt America much, but in terms of Australia, that's huge for us. That's a big, big industry for us. So that is going to really, really hurt our steel and aluminium industries. You know, the Aussie dollar, I fully agree. We're going to see a big drop in the Aussie dollar here. I'm very bearish on the AUD. Now, what does that mean for gold and silver investors in Australia? If the Aussie dollar drops like a stone, and let's just say, for example, that the US dollar price of gold and silver just stay the same. I'm not predicting that. I'm predicting them to go up. But let's say for a second, they just stay the same. Well, if the US dollar price stays the same, and then the Aussie dollar drops like a stone against the US dollar, then the Aussie dollar price of gold and silver in that scenario would increase dramatically, even with the US dollar price staying the same. And again, I'm predicting the US dollar price to go up. So the Aussie dollar is going to drop like a stone. The US dollar price of gold and silver are predicted to go up. What do you think the Aussie dollar price is going to do? They're going to go up even faster. So as an Australian investor, get out of the Aussie dollar, get out of the Pacific peso, as we like to call it, get into some real money, get into gold, silver, and Bitcoin.
What do you say about that, Bish?
I couldn't agree more with Sammy. He is the king for a reason. He's the samurai of silver for a reason. I've got nothing
Well,
else
it's
to
also why he's got the entire gold reserves in Australia.
and look, I agree wholeheartedly. So, you know, don't get too married to anything got to do with that's denominated in AUD, because the Aussie dollar is going to drop like a stone. So it's just naturally going to reprice. So, and especially if they cut rates, and you just see massive liquidity entering into the system, the Aussie dollar is just going to be in free fall. This does mean that there will be some respite for property investors who are over levered to the hilt. Their interest repayments go down, and their asset of choice goes up in AUD nominal terms, but you're not actually really getting ahead until you get into a strong gold, silver, and Bitcoin position. I've got a real big problem with Australian residential real estate right now. I think it is by far one of the most overvalued assets on the planet. By far. Probably second only or comparable to the Canadian property market. I think that if we can get as many people out of Australian residential real estate into gold, silver, and Bitcoin, I will sleep like a baby. I will sleep knowing that every single day I've saved hardworking Australian mum and dads from a lifetime of agony.
I fully agree. And on that point of Australian residential real estate, because I agree, there will be a small respite here for mortgage owners, for people that have big properties and big debt against them. Don't celebrate, guys. Yes, your asset will go up slightly in Aussie dollars here. It is already extremely overvalued. Even if it goes up 5% and the Aussie dollar loses 10% of its value, you're not ahead, guys. You haven't made any money. I know it might feel like that, But particularly when you look at the opportunity cost of what else you could have been sat in, say gold, which went up 40% last year, or Bitcoin, which went up over 100, you are so far behind when you're in real estate. Even if price goes up, you are so far behind. So don't use this as a celebration of, oh, finally my mortgage gets a bit cheaper. Finally my asset price gets to move up a little bit. You're still behind. Get rid of it, guys. Get out of it. Get into some proper assets.
And you know, I look at you guys. You guys are classic examples of what you're saying. You both are in these hedged positions, what I like to call hedged positions.
Yeah.
You're betting against the fiat dollar.
Yeah.
You guys don't look to me like you're suffering too much. I mean, Fisher was looking at a new private jet the other day. You're looking at brand new gold again.
Not yet. We need the repricing. We need the
We need the
repricing.
reprice. But what I'm saying is, you know, what people are really doing it tough, and we're not here to kind of like belittle people that are doing tough.
No.
What we're trying to do is educate and help people.
Yeah.
But I guess what you know, I guess what I'm saying is, if you were sitting there with a cardboard sign outside Flinders Street, we probably wouldn't be listening.
Yeah.
But what I'm noticing is that all the people in this space, not just us, but all the people in the space, are flourishing right now.
Yep.
I don't feel like any of the BTR people feel particularly, you know,
Hard done by. And how could they, when you know the crypto part of their portfolio is up massively over the last 12 months, and the bullion part of their portfolio is up massively over the last 12 months? What do they got to cry about? You know, what do you want me to get the world's smallest violin out for you? Oh, I'll make you so much money, Sam. Oh, no. Oh well, mate. Oh, it's a hard life to live. Someone's got to live it, guys.
All right. Well, boys, any just last advice, Bish, for the people? What should they be doing right now? I always like to leave people with a little bit of something. What should they be doing right now?
Focus on Bitcoin. Don't worry about your alts for now. As I said, focus on BTC. There's a lot of geopolitical tension right now, a lot of global uncertainty, reciprocal tariffs going everywhere. Now is not the time to play with alts. Now is the time to focus on stacking cold, hard BTC. And that's what I'm going to leave you on.
Sammy, something big to leave people on here.
So from the bullion perspective, gold's had a great run. It will keep going. Don't worry about it. But what to focus on buying from today is silver and platinum. So silver is about to make that big catch-up move to gold. It's about to outperform it in a big way. Make sure you're getting your silver. And platinum is about to break out of a 17-year chart pattern to the upside. So make sure that you've got a small allocation of platinum as well. Gold and silver are the monetary metals, so focus on those, particularly silver, given the massive upside. But if you don't have some platinum, look at getting some.
Well done. All right, that's it for us. Me, the guy in the hat. Of course, I'm here with the Baron of Bitcoin, the fabulous Bishop from Stormrake, and of course the Samurai Silver, slashing those central banks down for nothing. And again, thank you to our beautiful audience for watching, and we look forward to bringing another one of these every couple of weeks. We're going to do one of these every couple of weeks. We also, of course, are bringing you lives every Thursday night and every Sunday night together with these gentlemen who are, in my opinion, the smartest guys in the business. I've been doing a rant every Monday night, and then, of course, we're off to the golf conference, Sammy.
Yep, absolutely.
What are the dates for that?
13th and 14th of March. So if you're able to make it, come along. Should be a great event. Lots of different people from across the gold industry, gold miners, gold bullion dealers like me. So you get to learn a lot.
Any
about
gold diggers there, Sam?
Oh, there'll probably be one or two, mate, you know.
And you're sponsoring the event?
Yes. So Liberty Bullion is the major sponsor for the event. So I'll be having like an hour-long speech. I'll be a panelist on the panel of discussion people. So it should be a great event, guys. Make sure to come along if you're able to make it.
And
then we launch the book.
And then we'll be launching the book. We'll talk about that. But we are definitely going on an Australian tour. That's definitely happening. Yes. So regardless of that, books in various stages. Oh, I see a friend. All right, guys. Well, that's it for me. Guy in the hat, incredible guys here. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, look after your health, look after your wealth, and gentlemen,
make good choices.
See you later, everybody.